I'm now going to build up the background wash so it's the correct or close to the correct tone that I want it. That way I'll be able to see how much to darken these onions up. So I'm going to start by working with the colour I've mixed, which is Prussian blue, ultramarine, and a little bit of alizarin. And I've made a lot so that I know I won't run out for completing the whole of that area. I also think probably it would be useful to dampen this a bit so that the colour doesn't create tide lines as I lay down the next coat of blue. So I think I'm going to dampen this section here that I'm working on so that it takes the colour more evenly. I'm just using water, straightforward water for this, and I'll take it down as far as I think I can cope with the wash. I'm going to work reasonably quickly because I'm hoping I won't get any tide lines as I do this. So it's pretty wet. I might just slip off a tiny bit there. There. That's damp rather than actually very wet. And if I put this colour on, you can see it's already going in quite nicely. The aim is to really make this darker so that the garlics and the onions sing out from the background. I'm dropping the colour in rather than pushing it down. So, you know, the wetness underneath is taking the colour up. I'm going to dampen up the next area, which is around here. Bring that colour down a wee bit so it doesn't dry on an edge. This is just water at this stage, and then I will, as it sort of dries off a wee bit, I'll go back and apply the wet colour. It's very wet at the moment. I can see that by looking at it from the side, which is probably quite good. You know, it's not something I'd want it to be dry as I drop these bits of extra colour in. I'm using my paper towel just to lift off this absolute surplus of the wet, not to so that it ends up dry again, but just so that it takes off the surplus water. And then I can just lay this in and it will actually melt in with the glue above it, and there will be no line between where I left off painting a minute ago. It's often tricky going around these little shapes, so you do need a brush that has a good point on it, like this one, and also at the same time holds plenty of colour. That's why I always recommend a sable brush for watercolour painting. It works so much more efficiently than anything else. And you can see that I actually I put quite a lot of paint on this paper. I'm using my smaller brush now to just finish off this little tiny area here. You can have one brush in each hand, and that way you can work between the two. I'm going to extend this wet area here. Obviously got to avoid it going over the shapes that are these little tiny fine shapes. So I'm just using a slightly smaller brush for that. And each time I'm checking to see where the water is by looking at it from the side and noting that where I've got to with the actual water. You can come up into this area now. Using the tip of my brush in these little tiny areas so that I don't miss bits out at the same time. I'm trying to get the water quickly over the surface of the paper. This is just the wet water. Right, now I can probably give it a little blot. I'm not taking all the water off, but I'm actually taking, if I look at it from the side, it's still quite shiny, which is how I want it to be. So I know then that it's ready to take the paint. And I bring this paint down and across. It should only go away where the actual damp area is. The water goes to meet, the wash water goes to meet the wet on the paper. So and carry on, this is still damp up here. There. What I don't want to do is lose these little tiny fine hairy roots which I've painted at the back of the onion. And that's probably about it. Where there's a puddle and I don't want it, I just put my paintbrush into the puddle and then it will take off the surplus paint. It just draws it up like a straw. sort of suggesting a bit of a cast shadow in here, if you can see. So in this cast shadow at the back, I've actually created a sort of a warm grey blue, basically. I'm just going to go over it again, make it a bit more obvious. And if you don't like things, I can just lift them out like that with my paper towel. It's handy to have that as well.